subcontracting, or most of it. The Skillings is the actual people who do the well drilling. Uh, and we had to improve the insulation. And so we went with the Insul Kings from also nearby in Lowell. There were other subcontractors to do electric work, and we had the blown-in insulation in the attic. We had to remove that. So many different pieces to the project to get the whole thing to happen. So like I mentioned, our house was 1980. It's colonial, so we have 3 zones. You have the upstairs bedroom zone, a main floor, and a finished half basement. And before we had the natural gas with the forced hot water, and then afterwards is the geothermal forced hot and cold air. Next picture. So two water wells. This amazed me, 400 feet deep. I just can't imagine that, but they get the big truck out there and they drill into the ground. And what I'm showing you is a piece of lawn, and there's no sign of the wells. They're underground. The grass is grown over, and there's no visible sign that anything is going on here out of the normal. But this is just my backyard here, but there are 2 wells hidden underneath that grass, and then the pipes travel along nearer the surface, and then they enter the house between the steps here and the door here. So in here somewhere that it comes in. And you can see on the inside part, these are the 2 black pipes that are coming from underground, and then they're running up the side of the inside wall, and they go over to the geothermal unit. So just the warm water coming in and leaving the house. Next slide. So the system is we did have the forced hot water, like I was saying. So to switch to forced hot air, that does mean that we had to put in all the duct work. So that means we had to retrofit the house to put all the vents in. So like in the upstairs, the vents come in through the ceiling of each room. And then on the middle floor, the vents come in through the floor of each room. So this is both hot air and cold air coming in through the floor on the main and through the ceiling in the bedrooms. And so you work with a contractor to figure out where the vents should go. And they do a good job of making good suggestions, and there's flexibility with that. So a new house construction would be different than a retrofit like ours was, but it all worked out. So that's the vents. Next slide. Spray foam insulation. So as I say here, the adequate home insulation is a must. The Earth Tech, they won't install otherwise. If the house is too weak with insulation, they don't want to get involved. You need good insulation. So we went with this spray foam in the attic, and this is one of their brochures. They show it's a safe insulation, but when they do the install, they do have the full body covering. It's a safe material that's sprayed in, but so they come in and do all that. Okay, next picture. So this is the new attic floor. So previously, attic floor was kind of like unusable space. It was just the blown-in insulation on the floor of the attic. And so what they do is they remove that and they replace the insulation with now the sprayed foam you can see up in the rafters of the attic. So now the attic, instead of being crazy hot in the summer or crazy cold in the winter, now it's closer to regular room temperature. We don't explicitly heat it or cool it, but it just naturally it's more like room temperature. So that was kind of a nice advantage. So I say the attic temperature no longer matches outdoors, but is room temperature, and it has, it's warmish. And then there up here, you can see the 2 different kinds of duct work that we have. So this in the back here is the silver with this blackish. This is what they call the I forget the word. This is carrying the hot and cold air, and then the return air is another set of ducts in the front here. Oh, supply, and return. Those are 2 words: supply, return. Okay, next picture. So another nice thing about having the attic is now a comfortable temperature. They actually built some shelving in for us, so we got some additional storage space out of it. So instead of just having all the ductwork everywhere, we actually have usable space. So like all our Christmas stuff and whatnot goes up there. Um, and it is helpful to get one of the this extra storage space because you do lose a little bit of storage space on a retrofit. Here's one of our closets. We had two closets that we had to add in ductwork. So I don't know if it's easy to tell from the picture, but here's a closet, the back of the closet, and then there's like a bump out. This little bump out is the ductwork that they had to feed into the closet. So you lose some storage space to get the ductwork through, but you gain storage space back up in the attic. So well, I call it a net plus. You get more storage than we had originally. So next slide. Down in the garage. Um, we had we do have a garage, and above the garage is like our living room, and we identify that as one of the cold rooms of the house. So we added in insulation in the garage, uh, in the ceiling of the garage, to make the room above it warmer. And so we put a lot of insulation in and covered it with the plywood. And you can see like here's some of the duct work that's been covered up just as a visual, like a paneling here. So duct work is heading um, from the unfinished basement into the garage and up into the room above. So you want to keep this insulated so your warm air isn't cold. It doesn't get cold because of the garage air. The garage air is cold. In the winter, your garage stays maybe 40 degrees. Uh, our garage doesn't freeze, but it's not warm like the rest of the house. So you want to protect any of your duct work. So, okay, we're going to go to the next slide. Let's see. So another part of the system is not only do we have the system that pushes the hot air around the house, but we also changed the hot water system. Previously, we had a hot water system, natural gas, where um, you burn natural gas to boil water or close to boiling, and then or 120, and then you send that to your sinks and tub around the house. So what a nice thing about the geothermal system is that as a byproduct of its efficiency is it produces warm water, and then you put this warm water in this big tank, and the big tank then takes this warm water, and then the on-demand water heater takes that water in, it heats it up to finish it to go to 120, and then that's what gets sent to your sinks and your uh, shower and washing machine and dishwasher and so forth. So we don't keep this water is not like the traditional natural gas hot water heater where you have water constantly available, ready to go. This is water is not quite that warm, so but on demand it's drawn in and heated as it's needed. So and it works well for us. All our hot water needs are met with this system, and we try to go easy on the system. We would never stress it too hard, but we stagger our showers and laundry and things like that. So, but I don't even know if we really have to. I think it's just more efficient for us to do it that way. To put the whole system in, we did need new electrical work done, and that's this gray panel on the right. We needed like another 100 amp system, so you had to have another wire run out to the street and to contain the whole system. But so when you talk about getting the geothermal system, we got more. It's more than just the system. The hot water is involved, insulation involved, so several things involved. But next picture. So the temperature control. So we do have these Nest thermostats. So in the different zones, you can control. You can walk up and click the button. You tell it the temperature you want. But actually, more frequently, I use the computer. Actually, you go to a website and you can see your 3 zones: your red, black, and you set the temperatures that you want. So we generally set our temperature. We go with 68 degrees in the winter, 74 in the summer. So 68, if house gets colder than that, it's going to heat it up to the temperature you set. 74 is your air conditioning temperature. If it goes higher than that, then the unit kicks on and it will cool it down to that. So the unit can either do one or the other. It can heat or it can make cold, but it can't do both. at the same time. So generally, that's not a problem. Sometimes you get some crazy days in April where your basement is cool, but your upstairs is hot. So your upstairs, one wants to cool and the other wants, well, the system can't handle that. You got to pick one. But that doesn't really happen more than almost never, I would say. Um, so I would say a strategy with this the heating is basically we keep a consistent temperature setting nearly all the time. I know when we used to have the forced hot water, it was kind of easy to control. You could lower the temperature at night, or you go away and you can lower. And we do that now. If we were to go away, we haven't gone away in a while with the COVID, but we can do that. We can turn the system off and then restart it when we need to. But generally, for day to day, we don't. It's more efficient to keep the system at a comfortable temperature, and because the system, if you get it too cold, it has to work hard to get it back to the comfortable temperature. So it's different than sending nearly boiling water around your house to heat it up. You're sending warm air throughout the house, so you're trying to keep it at a comfortable temperature at all times. So a little bit different strategy on controlling the thermostats. Let me see if I missed anything here. Um, Next one. Okay, I will talk about costs. I was debating with myself it was what I was going to say on this, but everybody's costs are going to be different. Whether you're doing new construction or old, and and we know the drawback to this is that there's higher upfront costs. This is the number one thing known about the geothermal, and that's just the way it's always been. They are improving. The from 20 years ago, the systems are better than they were then, and I don't know exactly the latest technology, if it's even better than we had it installed in 2014. Um, we also had, you had federal incentives for energy efficiency. I don't keep up to date if these incentives are still active, or I know some of them run out. I know the ones for the cars could run out. And so I'm not completely up to date on that. But basically, we had to do all the work here. I have this price here. I put down 53K. Geothermal wells, ductwork, electric work, water heater. It would be less if you already have ductwork. It would be more if if you need woodworking and insulation. And so it was a choice we made to do this. So we never had the air conditioning before, so it was like before, it was like when we were kids, you open the window and you do your best trying to stay comfortable in the summertime. But we made the leap and went with the AC, and this was a nice option for that. Monthly bills are lower on average, but it's difficult for me to compare a year to year. Every year is different. The weather is different. I will say, our highest bill on an extremely cold winter, we did hit 400 on one of our crazy bills. I forget what year it was, and now there is an electric system, and I don't know if this is a good comparison or not, but maybe 330. So I think definitely the monthly bills are average less. We also did take a step of doing the solar panel, and that also makes our comparisons a little difficult. Maintenance costs, we're now, as everybody has with a hot air system, you have a filter that you have to replace, and we do it every 6 months. And they do a pump out and a system inspection, the water pump out. So, maybe like $300 on that annual. How did it affect our home property value? Well, nobody knows, to be determined. We're not looking to sell anytime soon, but uh, those things really vary with the real estate conditions. So it's really hard to say what difference we've made in terms of property value. I'm going to keep going. Here's the utility bills. So here's the bill for like the past year. You can see December, January, and February are the highest electric usage. So basically, we kind of have like no gas bill anymore. The gas is used for cooking, and that's kind of it. But once the spring comes, you can see a big drop in the energy usage. June is like the low. Then you can see July, August, and September is like a mini bump. Back down to October is a nice low before November and December creep up again. So you learn from this chart, you say, what does it cost more to heat your house or to cool your house? Well, it's clear. It costs more to heat your house. It's like a five-fold difference. Here, in August, where it peaks, we have 320 units, the kilowatt hours, but here it's 1600 to heat your house in the winter. So I think the geothermal, I think, is popular in southern U.S. where it's mostly hot because it's very easy to be efficient with the air conditioning and the cooling. Um, Another comparison we get, and maybe you guys get this too from National Grid. They give us a chart and say, how is your energy efficiency? So National Grid knows my energy, my electric consumption, and they know my natural gas consumption. So they compare me, and they use us. They could look at 100 neighbors here, and they say the average of the 100 neighbors uses this 1,023 units of energy, and then they take the top 20% of those people, and those people use 605 units of energy in a month. But they're telling me I'm even better than that. So they're saying I'm 402 units of energy. So to me, I'm pretty efficient, even compared to the efficient neighbors. And so they give me a little great smiley face here. So I'm proud of this. And these are numbers that they can tell me. I can't really determine this on my own by doing year to year, but with them telling me this is, I think, kind of some validation that I am helping in the environment with this step. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide. Oh, conclusions. Okay, so basically, our house air temperature, I call it terrific. It's comfortable year round. The heat blows gently, and the air conditioning cools the house quickly. We are happy with this choice for comfort, reliability, environmental benefit. So we are happy with that. So I will end with that. So go back to that. Okay. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments, or open it up to the group.
Do you want to just take the screen share off so we can
Sure.
everybody here, and that will be helpful. Yeah. Wow.
Stop share.
Beautiful.
Okay. Questions? I see Julie's hand raised.
Hi. So yeah, this was fascinating. But I guess what I want to know is, like, I think you tried to allude to it a little bit, but just how disruptive, how much actual renovation work did this involve? I mean, it looked like you had a bump out in a closet for duct work. You said you originally had gas, hot water, which is what we have here. So
Right.
we have all these baseboards running around the
Right.
house with gas. So it doesn't sound like you took those out and put the ducts in there, or you had to construct.
That's right. No, the baseboards in some rooms, the baseboards aren't needed anymore. In some rooms, we took the step of taking them out, but we didn't in other rooms. Just didn't want to deal with it. But the ductwork is hidden in most of the rooms. So in the main floor, it's underneath the flooring, and in the bedroom in the upstairs, all the ductwork is in the attic. So you're not losing space in your living area, except for the two closets that we had to go through. So we had to go the main floor near the front door of the house. There's a closet, like a coat closet. So that lost a couple feet of space. And then it went up into my son's bedroom. His closet lost a couple of feet of space, and that was it.
Oh, okay.
The other rooms are not really lost space.
And you didn't have to break through walls and floors and things like that, because we've been renovating our house for 30 years, and at this point, there's no way we want to start breaking down walls after we've just finally gotten them all done. But okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, no walls need to be broken through, and you live. I mean, you do have like your beams are all 16 inches on center, so they work it so that all the ducts will take advantage of that. The ducts will fit in the 16-inch space, so you choose which 16-inch opening you want the duct to come through, or the vent to come through for the different floors. So yeah, we were happy with that. And in terms of disruption, I mean, they do need time to come in and do the work. It was, I think we didn't have to leave the house. We may have, but it wasn't, while they were doing the work, it wasn't
Mhm.
disruptive of the lifestyle, I would say.
Yeah, well, we're used to that. I just didn't want to.
Okay.
I just didn't want to have to, like, break down any of the new walls that we've had put up and things like that recently.
No, they,
If we were to do this.
they do this, they size the system appropriately for your house, the number of rooms, so that the machine is like a certain number of tons. And so they do say, if in the future you're looking to build an addition or a new room off a porch or new room, or that would, that's something that you might need to take in account. But if you're not going to be doing any of that, then they sized our system for the house that we have at the moment, and which is fine for us.
And when you first contacted Earth Tech, did they, like many contractors will do, just come out and talk and spend time and then give you an estimate of
Definitely.
everything,
Yeah, I'm happy with Terry on that. He's a very personable guy. He does exactly that. In fact, he will take you to existing homes that he's doing, especially that are going on, where he has access to the homes. So I saw two homes, one new construction and a redo nearby. One was Westford, and I think one was South Chelmsford maybe. And so you see it. He's very open about showing how the system works, and uh, so it wasn't a surprise as we got going.
Okay.
Uh,
Tom, I can see it.
Quick question. How much do you think it would have cost less if you had, forced air ducts for, a gas furnace to begin with?
That is a good question. I don't have really a good answer on that. Um, if I would say it wouldn't be, I think it would be half or less. I don't think it would be more than, I don't think the savings would be more than, the system, you still need the system, the base system, even if you have duct work. So that would be a guess, maybe a third to a half, somewhere in that. That's a guess.
Okay.
Oh, what was the question, Tom?
It was if you, if your system is forced hot air with ducts, in a gas furnace, which is, very conventional, a lot of us have, how much less would it cost to go to the geothermal heat exchange system? See, Eric didn't have the ducts to begin with.
Right. So I can give a cost estimate as of end of March or end of April 2020 estimate on my house. I had an estimate done for a roughly 4-ton to 5-ton geothermal estimate, and all said and done, replacing my existing 96% high efficiency hot air and replacing it with that geothermal 2 well and upgrade in electrical work and all the other associated paraphernalia started to come around somewhere in the range of 47K, 45K range, basically. And I'll talk about it in my section of the talk after this a bit. But that was roughly the guidance, anywhere between 35 to 45K, depending on what I chose as an option set that came around there in the pricing schema there. So certainly that was the latest one, and that was with the 30% federal incentives that was available last year. I think this year it's now at 26% or so this year onwards, unless of course January 20th changes that and we have a renewal of that particular aspect. But that's the number I have, Tom.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll get to Badri in a second. I just want to make sure we've covered everything here with Eric's talk. And Judy, I saw your hand raised.
Just a quick question. How much do you think your solar panels offset the electricity use? Because it seems like to some extent you were trading gas for electric. which eventually maybe as we're getting more energy from other sources than fossil fuels. But right now, I mean, if somebody didn't have that, do you have a sense of that?
Yeah. So that's another one. I don't have hard numbers on it. I will say we do have the number of panels they could fit on our house. We could get 14 panels. I would have liked to have gotten more. And we got the panels even before we got the geothermal system. So, and I've, I have the plug-in car now that I'm trying to draw off too. And so you can always use more panels, it seems. We do sell the electricity back to National Grid, so it goes back on the grid before we draw it off the grid. So I don't have the option to, run my geothermal directly. If we lose power out on the street, we don't have the advantage. We don't have the ability to still run off of our solar panels. I think to really give good, I can't really give good numbers. I wish I could, but I do know that the solar was worth it for us in terms. We estimated. I thought it would be a 7 to 8 year payback period. We're getting close to that. I haven't run the numbers to see if the theoretical matches the actual, but I'm happy we did both.
Excellent. Wow. Okay. And Dale?
The first thing that came to mind on my consideration here, because we were coming up to probably replacing our gas-fired furnace, hot forced air, with a new system and adding air conditioning too. And maybe our hot water heater is about due. It's 12, 13 years old now. But the insulation business that you were talking about, I had some concerns about that. I wondered if the fiberglass insulation that we added in there would not be sufficient for the attic, for one thing.
Is the fiberglass insulation on the floor of the attic?
Yeah.
So basically, the ductwork is going to have to make its way through to get down into the rooms. So
I don't have that problem because I already have forced hot air. So I have ducts already.
You have ducts already.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay. So that's unfamiliar territory for me. If the insulation on the attic floor is still usable, I guess you run the risk of the warm air getting into. If the attic is cold, then you're cooling the air on the way to the bedroom. But you have that now, I guess, right? If it's cold
No,
in the
I'm in a ranch house. All the ducts are in the basement.
okay.
So there's not a problem for
So
that.
everything comes from the floor. Yeah. If you don't have to heat through the ceiling, then it should everything all the vents will come through the floor. Yeah, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
The other thing I was slightly concerned about is when they put foam insulation on the rafters in the roof like that. I would think that would make your roofing that much hotter. But if you have solar panels up there, you're already blocking a lot of the sunlight, I suppose.
Yeah. No, they think they actually had to
just want to listen.
they had to rebrace the attic when they put the solar in, but they didn't have to do any rebracing for the insulation in the rafters.
No, I
So,
just about the temperature of the roofing materials themselves, because normally you have ridge vents and you have ambient air flowing up along the roof and then out the ridge vents to help cool the roof. But if you put insulation there, you're going to make that temperature of that roofing materials go that much higher, which might not be good long term.
okay, if it's a problem, it hasn't been. I never really thought about that as a problem. I don't know if it is a practical problem. I do know that all of our bathroom vents, they had to be redone. The vents would go up through the attic, but now that the attic has the insulation moved, the ductwork to reach the outside air for those bathroom vents had to be redone. So that was another part of the project. I didn't show pictures of that.
Yeah. And the electric use on that, is that mostly pumping in water and blowing in the air?
The electric use is, I think it's drawing the warm water, drawing the warm temperature out of the water, I think is the big part of the electric bill, more so than the blowing, I think. it does take electric. You do need electric power to convert the heat into the warm air. I think that's where the bulk of the electric cost goes.
The compressor is the one that is making the largest amount of electric consumption. The
Okay.
blower fans are very efficient because you usually have the ECM motors running them and the variable rates. So it's the compression, the heat extraction compression that's doing the work.
So is your instant hot water heater or on-demand hot water heater, is that gas powered or is it electric?
Electric.
Electric. Okay.
And there is one more thing that might be there, at least when I got the quote. There is a backup electric heating coil in the system for the days when, especially in the months of, supposedly, as I was told, usually in the months of March and April or February, that the backup electric heater does have to come in and kick in for some additional heat to be blown across, and the ground is unable to supply as much heat extractable hot water.
The same was built for us. They have this emergency, I'd call it, not emergency is the right word, but right, if the system can't keep up, it's giving you a backup so that the electric runs harder it's like, now it becomes like electric heat in your house, which we know is very expensive, but I've never actually needed to use it in all the years. They've provided it for me for extreme cold temperatures. But fortunately, I haven't actually needed it. You have to throw an extra switch to keep the heat running on the very, very coldest of days. But like I said, I haven't even needed to do it.
Yeah, that's typical of an AC system in Florida too. You get an air conditioner and they put in an electric heater if you ever need it, which is unusual in Florida.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? We can switch to the next person. If not, I'll ask.
Just a real quick question. Do you have a hot tub?
I do not.
Good. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, I know Badri has joined us and he's going to talk to, and I haven't talked to Badri or I didn't talk to Eric, so I have no idea what people have been planning to talk about. We really play this by ear. But Badri has noted his topic will be a holistic view on reducing one's carbon footprint. And Badri, I have to admit, your name is very familiar to me. I seem to think you had something to do with working with the town or back.
Yes. Back in 2008, I was on the Energy Commission founding team member of the Energy Commission. We were the first ones to approve the solar panels on the Chelmsford Library roof and initiate the LED street lighting, as well as do the first about the audit, which we did with Sageville Company. They actually did a nighttime drive-by infrared thermal imaging for this town to try and give people just a view of how their houses looked in cold temperature, just to give you an infrared image of how much heat people were leaving. I'm also a town representative now for, I think it's now my 5th year starting this April, or 6th year. I come back for renewal next year. Yes, so it's my 6th year starting in April. So I've about 5 years complete now. So I've been, and so yeah, and I was also for a time the volunteer director for Greener Chelmsford initiative starting in 2009 when I was trying to do some activities to help promote our town's businesses to pick up being a little bit more greener at that time.
Yep, that's
I
right.
do see Jean-Carla, who is who I call her the friendly bird lady in our house. But a big shout out to her. She should be nominated for the Chelmsford Nobel Prize on making sure that the bluebird populations have emerged here. So if it's okay, Kathy, then do I have the floor to yap for some time?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't have any slides and everything else. Maybe I should put this together, but I'll at least speak to it. So as I mentioned, I came up with a topic literally 30 seconds before joining the call. It's holistic view, but the key thing that I think one of the things we are all looking at is from an energy efficiency and particular aspects of highlightable or major capital items or things that make us comfortable. But one of the things I have come to realize is to take a look at a more holistic view of how things are to be done. And I think a lot of these principles are available, and we are more curious about sometimes some of these questions of customizable energy usage and aspects of it, but we'll look at the holistic view. So first thing I did was I ended up looking at a couple of websites, and I actually did a carbon footprint analysis of my household and my lifestyle. Right. So that's the first step you take on. And in that, there's a whole set of questions. And one of the websites, I can send it off to the group later on, it can be posted. And it's a great one because it's based out of UK basically. So it does have certain, aggregate numbers. But the goodness of that is that it gives you a lifestyle profile of what your footprint is. Right. So I'll freely admit, depending on the type of inputs I give, my household footprint is 30 to 35 or 38 tons of carbon. Right. And that's on the lower end. I modeled a few others, and those others can go up to 42, 45, 55 metric tons. And if we were to analyze for the United Nations Climate Committee, Change Protocol scientists and all of that, the per capita footprint needs to be in the range of, I think, 0.6 tons. My household has one child, so that's only an allocation of about 1.8 tons, and I'm already at 35 tons. So I'm 25 times or 20 times more than that. So you can all do the math around that, and the U.S. lifestyle is just completely overblown, right? So it's one of this holistic view that we have to start taking and thinking about in that, so to speak. So I think that is an important aspect that we must think about in terms of figuring out first where to put our focus and energies. Once I was able to do this, I also ended up doing a little bit more study. I spent time in understanding how many, I looked at where my footprints were. The key 5 things, which is known to everybody in general, it's known at least from an individual perspective. In the global scheme of things, it's essentially industry, building, transportation, food, and lifestyles. Some of the lifestyle choices. These are the big 5 categories, right? So I don't have an industry here, so I have to focus on building. I put transportation in 2 different categories. I did transportation, basic daily, and travel or pleasure travel, business travel, all of that. Then I put in lifestyle. I put food and clothing as a bucket of element, and I tried to do this study within the website a little bit by modeling a few things and just trying to find what the differences are. I found that obviously a lot of footprint in the building, the home that we have, and it's nothing fancy. It's a ranch style house. I get calls from I get daily debates with my wife and daughter to think about moving to a bigger house, and I'm like, okay, maybe the carbon footprint is. I can't tell them that and argue with that, but that's on an ongoing basis. But things that I've done since, and I've lived in the town now for about, I think this year will be 16 years. Pretty soon after we came in, I, signed up for Mass Save. We did attic blown insulation. We put that in air sealing. Every 2 or 3 years, I get Mass Save to come out and do one or the other audit and fix one or the other 2 things or whatever is the updated stuff specifically. Nearly 70% of my lighting in the house is LED lighting. At this point, no, not even regular incandescent or CFLs. When I did use CFLs for a long time, as soon as it was available and reliable, and as they started to burn out or go out, I transitioned to LED lights to try and maintain the most amount of lighting efficiency. So literally, I think I have some CFLs that don't get burned out right now because they're in some basement closet or something that I hardly turn on, so they run that way. But other than that, all the main housing lights are on LED. I computed out that if I were to turn on all the lights in my house, I probably consume about 900 watts of electricity, or thereabouts. If I had everything full blown, 900 to about 1100 watts. Every closet, every light turned on full blast, right? But I'm probably consuming about 200 watts or 250 watts at best if I was living the whole different parts of the house that was active and functional, basically. I did switch as soon as I moved in back in 2006-7. I moved to a high efficiency furnace. The house had an original 1972 Lennox. I moved to a Goodman 97% high efficiency, 96% high efficiency furnace. So that was immediately transferable savings on natural gas, basically. I also added about 5 years ago now, I added solar. And like somebody else mentioned, I think it was Eric who mentioned, but I wish I had put in more panels. But I was sort of not ready at that point for that upfront amount of money, but I should have done it. In retrospect, I regretted not doing that. But I have a 5 kilowatt DC panel that's produced 30 megawatt hours right now. I haven't paid an electricity bill in 4 years and 7 months at this point. So no electricity bills paid out. I have close to 1 year's worth, or almost 1.5 years worth of electricity bill in the bank with National Grid based on my savings, because I use less than what I generate. So basically I have a credit with National Grid available for about a year's worth of household electricity if I want to. I'm banking some of it when my next EV comes in as a transition point, right? So we did, I had to redo my basement, and at which point what I did was, instead of having carpet on concrete, I actually built a 1-inch rafter on the concrete, basically, and in between that I put a rigid board insulation of 1 inch, basically with an R5 value on it, on the basement. So at least it became partially, not all of it, but partially the cold surface thermal convection that was coming in from the floor got cooled down a little bit, essentially. The best, one of the things I've noticed in and around town is that a lot of people don't practice when they build new housing and stuff. Our codes are not updated because people look at the initial cost of build out, or many contractors just don't do it until you ask and have a conversation on it. There are certain things that you can do to build. If you're pouring new concrete in a basement, or if you're doing a new house build with a basement, it's better to actually put 2 or 3 inches of hard insulation between the ground and before you pour the crushed stone, and then do the cement pour on the basement. We actually did a extension, and in that extension, I actually put a 2-inch thick blue board rigid R10 before I put the crushed stone, and on top of it was 4 inches of concrete, basically. So that's actually the same principle that's used in your cold storage facilities, meat packing or meat storage facilities, and are also under the runways of airports. They actually put 6 or 7 of them to keep the thermal barrier. Otherwise, in cold, frigid temperatures, you would have the frosting and heaving happening, and you don't want that, obviously, when you try to land in beautiful Vancouver or Toronto airports or any of that kind of. So I picked up some of those techniques from that and tried to add that, basically. Obviously, that's on the building side. I have looked at geothermal as an addition capacity because I'm coming up on my forced hot air lifetime. I mean, the newer systems could last 20, 25 years, but I'm already looking and saying it's already 15 years old. I probably have a 5-year window to practice and figure out where to reduce that and stuff. But I looked at the cost structure and I said, for the cost that we have, which I previously presented, was about $45K out of pocket, or so post 30% federal credits, somewhere thereabouts. that the return on investment on my furnace portion, which was emitting about 3.5 tons of carbon footprint to 4.5 tons of carbon footprint, was not as sufficient, because I could probably buy a carbon offset credit at the rate of $50 or $100 per year. I could buy a credit offset somewhere and be done with it. So in a way of investing dollars, if I were to look at it, I said, yeah, that's not the right place to put it in. What am I going to use that money for? Well, that money, if I wish now, I could say I would put more panels as secondary, or a micro wind turbine if I could. There are a lot of things that I've looked at as the micro wind turbines that we could mount on the side of the house or on there that would produce a small amount of electricity, especially in April and November, December, that could augment some of those things. But haven't gotten there, because I think our town codes don't yet allow putting wind turbines in small enough, and the designs are still not return on investment there. But one aspect that I am considering and looking at this time and researching a bit is battery backup for storage in terms of it. So that's one area that's of consideration, to try and keep, rather than pump everything to the grid, keep some clean energy stored for the occasional time that that's required, as the answer there. So that's on the building side that I've ended up doing as the actions that I've taken over the past, essentially. The next big analysis that I ended up doing based on conversions, gas consumption, all of that thing, was we had 2 gas cars. We moved into town with 1 car. My wife started working in Boston and had to buy a second car. We bought both efficient cars in general, no trucks. We were on a Volkswagen and a Toyota at that time, but at both life ending of both of them, we switched to it. Both of us got, or I forced it on my wife. I should accept it, because Giancarlo is witness here. She'll go and tell my wife and say, hey, Padre was saying this, but I forced it on my wife to get both Toyota Priuses, so we're on hybrids basically. So we sort of, I looked at the fuel efficiency for the same commuted distance. We reduced our footprint by half at least, or by 60%, because we switched to a hybrid mechanism and had a better mileage basically. And so we're running those through at this point. And the other big thing that COVID has done for us significantly is that I have not gone to work in 9 months now. So no travel there. And I actually computed out that for my annual mileage, I did a computation. I run about 14,000 to 15,000 miles. About 9,000 of those miles, or 10,000 of those miles, come from my travel to work. And even on a Prius, that's roughly about 3.5 tons of footprint by itself. So by looking at that, investing in the fact that I was able to move from an older generation Volkswagen to a newer generation Prius, I've been able to cut down to 3.5. And using this and using this Prius is where I am at 30 tons, so to speak, right? So you can imagine that that's still a significant amount of footprint in the overall spend structure. We do take air travel, so that is a bigger, every time you get on a plane to go to Disney or to California or Europe or elsewhere to visit family, that's a big hit. And that's one of the bigger hits when we travel once every year or once every other year to Asia. Then we have that big hits that come to us. But that's something that's currently, the only way to offset that is through offset certificates or credits that you buy with several agencies that you can buy and buy it with a ticket, basically. So that's the other travel portion. Obviously, I'm working with my company in some ways too, and COVID has made this realization, and I'm trying to instill upon them that maybe there should be 2 to 3 days of work from home policies for those who can, so that you don't have to necessarily come in and you have quiet times and you save on commute time, and that means more time for either exercise or for more meetings and more work. So maybe work will get interested. The next big thing in lifestyle, there are 2 categories. Food is a major category. I did model this, and I can't be the preacher here necessarily, but I'll lay it out for people who are interested in doing this. And there's multiple studies in here particularly. The biggest impact in food-based product things, apart from packaging, other from of things that are ancillary numbers to the type of food we have, is the type of food we have. It's clearly shown by studies, and it's a significant factor, well-known documented numbers, is meat, dairy, and egg production cause the biggest amount of greenhouse gas impact. In fact, they have disproportionate amounts of impact because of methane production in meat production processes or dairy production processes because of animal husbandry. And all of those have orders of magnitude higher impact in terms of the footprint. There is, in fact, out available a health, nutrition versus footprint XY graph available. I can share it with Kathy or somebody else in the CSAT group, and they can post it somewhere. But it's a key way of looking at what's good for you, and it clearly shows you what types of foods have what carbon footprint and where it is basically. And so I'm a vegetarian first order, and by vegetarian I'm actually a ova-lacta vegetarian, which means I have eggs and milk or dairy. And one of the things I've been doing now in 2021, my resolution is to move that curve a little bit down. Which means I won't necessarily drop in 2021. I will complete drop of egg and milk, but it's a personal commitment, not my wife and daughter. So, but I have to first see whether or not I can move my self-sustainability off of dairy and milk and try to move that content down basically as a proportional component of my footprint level basically. So that's one aspect. And I've looked at a few other things. A lot of people, even in the vegan world, tend to go and want to have almond milk or something like that, for example. And then you scratch your head and you look at the almond milk. Almonds have a very high footprint because it takes a lot of water to raise, even I think somewhere I read, but maybe subject to correction or needs to have it, is 5 liters of water, I think, or 2 gallons of, or 1.5 gallons of water for every 10 grams of almonds or something like that, basically, which is a very high ratio comparative to pretty much what the erstwhile process of brewing beer was for one bottle of beer or 1 can of beer. So anyways, those are all debates that we can look at and try to do that detail, but that's the other and final step, almost near final step. What I have not addressed at this point is what I do know is from an industry-wide study and other things is clothing is a very big contributor, or more specifically, fast fashion is a very big contributor to the carbon footprint because a lot of the clothing just gets dumped now and not even upcycled because one, people don't want to have used clothing, or they're so cheap to produce some things that they just dump it and bring it out, so to speak. But that's an area that I haven't figured out how and what. I don't necessarily go out and shop every week for clothing, but still it's an area. And that's where you see these conversations by Levi's or other jean companies that say, there's no need to wash our jeans every week. You're okay and perfectly fine to wash it once every month or maybe once every 6 months. And as long as you generally take care of it without getting, too soiled and stuff as such. But those are the big 5 categories that I've been looking at in some of this. One particular area that I have not covered in food or in operations of households, so to speak, is obviously organic waste, right? And trying to do composting is a helpful piece where it's feasible, obviously returning to that. I haven't talked. We did it for some years. We do some amount of it, not all of it. So I can't speak to it as much. I claim that I have reached that level of zen over there because it's an operations issue and it's who does what. So I have to pick my battles at home appropriately. So given that, I think that's another area. Obviously, the town continues to harp on that and has the Earth Day, composting bin, things of that nature. I think these are big 5 categories in looking at a holistic view of figuring out what one does for carbon footprint, or looking at your footprint basically, and saying, knowing where your footprint is, and then saying, what are the changes one can do? You may not be able to change a high efficiency furnace on a daily basis, but you may be able to change your food habits or your travel habits a bit. Of course, you want to be also looking out and planning ahead. I think Dale had a question about his furnace coming up for sort of renewal, and he's thinking about upgrading to something else or what it is. It's a perfect question, because I asked the question right now: is geothermal the right answer, or would there be a hydrogen fuel cell based heating solution that combines heat and electric production, be the next generation solutions that needs to come in? Because even natural gas, as we know it, is going to start running out of its footprint capabilities in about 20 years or so. So if you're looking at that, then obviously you've got the supply infrastructure that National Grid and others have to try and consider as to how we're going to do it. And it's not easy to convert everybody off of natural gas immediately to electric heating or geothermal, right? Even if we do the geothermal, even for the town of Chelmsford at about 18,000 homes that we have, and it takes about a week for a geothermal operation to be completed, it would take about 18,000 weeks to do that. But then if you then said, if you put in parallel crews of everybody converting it, you would need about 300 crews just in the town of Chelmsford to change in 10 years or so, to try and change significantly to everybody to geothermal. But anyways, those are the types of things that we have to think about in scale, but what we can do. But it's important, obviously, to plan, as this conversation might yield, or other places that we have to create the education, is we may need to create a roadmap of when and where certain technologies and what it is from a planning perspective, what to adopt when as a feasibility. But obviously first doing a calculation and looking holistically at saying, which portions can you change and how and when, is a great planning vehicle to try and reduce it. I don't know what my previous footprint would have been. I'm assuming it was 50 or 60 carbon tons, basically. But as you can still see we're 20x off of our limits, and the train is running at a very high speed, and whatever brakes we try to put it takes a lot of moving. And one could be pessimistic and say, maybe the train has left the station and climate change is going to be real coming in. And maybe there is just carbon capture type of thing that needs to happen. But I think certain moves can be done to try and change the economy and the way lifestyle that we live, to try and bring a bit more balance, and where we balance our investment dollars across the board, both as working people, as retired people, as youngsters coming in, what we have to do and think about. So that's my 15-minute spiel or 20-minute spiel. Sorry, Kathy, you didn't stop me. Otherwise, I can.
It was wonderful, Badri. This was a great way to look at things. You've given you truly did do a holistic view. I really appreciate you coming today to talk to us. Tom, Julie, either one of you have a comment quickly?
Yeah, I was going to ask Badri if he could use the chat to put in a link to that carbon measuring, your carbon footprint, the tool, the analysis to compute your carbon footprint.
Yep, I'll send that out in a bit. There are a couple of footprint calculators, but I'll definitely find out, and I'll send you the one in a few minutes as such.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have my email address, Badri? I'm thinking I would like to make sure I get that so I can put it in the climate, chelmsfordclimate.org.
Absolutely, yeah. I have your email. I will certainly email to that, basically, and we can actually do that. And I don't know if this is one thing that we could do. I would really love as a suggestion, and this is one of the areas Tom and I, when I emailed CSAT and said, the one area that I'd really love to do is we need to take, as director of Green Greener Chelmsford, one of the things I did back in 2008 is actually contact and try to find out what Chelmsford's transportation or footprint was by getting all the model types of cars that are registered in Chelmsford. And I used some ballpark numbers. So one thing that we could do, Kathy and others, is, and it's a great project for the high schoolers basically, is to do a carbon footprint census of the town.
Yep.
And it's a way to every year collect the data, show a visualization on a Google map or something. Of course, there's a lot of data already available online, which actually shows what the Chelmsford falls in the 45-ton per person or per household average. But a more detailed level, doing this audit and data is a great step towards personal. You can't change things what you don't measure, right? So do that. But I'll send you the link out, Kathy.
That would be great. And you also mentioned one about the carbon footprint of the foods that we ate. I think you said you had a website on that. That sounds like something that would be nice to have on our website. And in fact, are you still there, Badri?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I see. There you are. My chat box was covering your message. Yeah, we had thought to do something like measure the greenhouse gases in Chelmsford, and we are hoping we can get some student help from the high school, because we're hoping with our climate resolution that we hope to present to town meeting in the spring, that will get the town to agree to help us put that together. So that information's on our website, chelmsfordclimate.org, if you want to read more about it. But we would love to have you work with us to do that. I do remember.
I'll be the strongest voice that you can hear on this one.
Great. Okay,
Good.
that's what we were thrilled to hear.
As a town meeting rep, I will support you 125%, 2000% on this. This is an imperative that I have communicated several times, both in the vision statement when we did that. I also was very forceful in having the word sustainable as a proxy for both financial and ecological and environmental, basically.
Oh, that's good news to hear. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you came today. And I think your presentation was fantastic. I would love to see this as maybe a Thursday evening special program. I'll talk to Jessica about something like that.
Happy to do that.
It's something that more than us climate advocates need to hear. This kind of program that we would try to do on a Thursday night and make available to all those folks who are working and students as well. So we'll talk to you a little more about that.
Absolutely.
Before Badri's section of this is over, because we still have Hugh is coming on to explain the temperature aspect of climate change. Is there any other questions that anybody might have? That we have a minute. Okay, we'll save them for when we get Badri back again.
I'm here.
Okay, all right, well, we will I'll talk with you again, Badri, about the
Sure.
Another type of program with where we can see you and you could present some slides too, if you can.
Absolutely.
It'll be a while. I still have to work this out with the library, but I want to go on to the next section because we're moving through this quickly. Hugh Southwell over here has offered to explain something to us, because some of us who don't have that STEM background or math background get confused about the rising temperature. When we say we're trying to stay at net zero by get to net zero by 2050, what exactly does that mean? And Hugh did the research, and he's going to give us a explanation of that, and then we're going to have to be ending soon after that. So if you do have some questions, hold them till after Hugh, and we will try to get them in before 3 o'clock. Okay. All right. Hugh, are you set to, are you unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very
I
well.
did unmute myself.
Yep. you're-
I was not going to talk on the net zero.
okay.
I'm not sure where you got that. But,
I get a lot of things up here, and
oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
I don't understand it all. Temperature,
Anyway,
that's why I need you.
Well,
but that's
Kathy,
okay.
I prepared a list.
Oh,
Should I try to run through that real quick?
well, you know what, Tom, let me just have Hugh do,
Cute.
yeah, because Hugh is on the agenda, and we will see what we can get to.
Oh, you're going to do something different, Hugh. Okay.
Yeah, we're actually
Yes.
moving off of the reducing our carbon footprint topic for just now, because I want to make sure I fit Hugh in. He had offered to do this explanation, and then we'll see what we can, you know, the time we have left.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, Hugh.
There were a couple of questions that I had on climate change that I found the answer to. I thought they were pretty interesting.
Mhm.
The 2015 Paris Climate Accord set sort of a guardrail temperature rise of 1.5 degrees centigrade.
Mhm.
And my question was, a rise from what? If it's going to be a rise or an increase, there's got to be some reference level that it rises from. It's basically from a pre-industrial temperature is what they claim. Well, that's pretty vague. You don't know what industrial age are you talking about or whatever. But there is a very clear level that they are talking about. And the temperature is basically the global average surface temperature of the Earth. And the pre-industrial time they're talking about is from 1850 to 1900. And you take all of those global average surface temperatures and you average them. So it's like an average of it's a time average from 1850 to 1900. And so that's the number. That's one number. And the rise is from that number. And it's not supposed to go over 1.5 degrees centigrade, or bad things will happen. In terms of climate extremes and sea level rise. Some people will be left without homes. So, and that temperature, that number, it was about 18 degrees centigrade. That's, so you double that, that's 18 times 2 is 36, and you add 30, that gives you 66. That's the approximate way of getting from degrees C to degrees F. And when do they use degrees C? Well, that's the temperature that science uses. That's the main reason. The other reason it was done in Paris. France is the world headquarters of the metric system. So if you use Fahrenheit, they'd laugh you out of the building. So, and 1 degree rise in centigrade is almost 2 degrees rise in Fahrenheit. A degree centigrade is about 2 times as big as a degree Fahrenheit. It's 1.8 times. So I thought that's the answer to that. Now, when do we get to the 1.5 degrees C rise from pre-industrial temperature level? That's a good question. It depends on how much carbon goes into the atmosphere. It's the measure is instantaneous. I mean, it's now. We're currently at 1.2 degrees centigrade, so we're getting up to 1.5. But it's a real-time measurement. You picture a big thermometer on the side of the Empire State Building with a needle that's going like this. For every billion tons of carbon that goes into the atmosphere, it ticks up, ticks up, ticks up. Right now we're on 1.2. So the guardrail temperature is 1.5. So, we're not going to all turn into pumpkins when it hits 1.5, but things will get a little bit more dicey. And the World Meteorological Organization says that there's about a 20% chance that it'll go above 1.5, at least temporarily, in 2024. That is not very long from now. So then, once it goes above 1.5, we'll be fighting it and trying to keep it down or below 1.5. And that's really all I had.
Wow, that's pretty frightening to think that. But I guess I've had the issue with the centigrade and Fahrenheit. That confuses me because I'm not a scientist. I think Fahrenheit. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
Canada uses degrees C. So do you ever go to Canada?
Yeah, haven't been there lately.
Yeah.
Most of the world uses degree C. It's only the US and England that tend to use Fahrenheit.
There you go.
Yeah,
And the metric system.
right. Inches is just a local thing. Wow. Okay. Thank you for putting that together. I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. I think, Tom, you wanted to say something quickly because I know it's getting late and we have, are you unmuted? Tom, you're not unmuted.
I thought I was also gonna present on reducing carbon footprint, but it would probably take too long.
Mhm.
So
Well, if you want to just let folks know what you have done yourself at your own home, because I know there's a lot you've done.
right. Well, maybe I could just skim over it a bit.
Yeah,
Just-
just maybe the
Because I
topic.
might hit something other people haven't thought of. I'll try to do that.
Right. Well, the thing is too, that we can, if we get just a list of those topics, we can find out from the group who would like to know more about each one, and
Right.
we can continue this another time. I
I
don't have,
could, yeah, I could, I have a Word document that could post, maybe
Mhm.
could put it in a blog on the website.
an idea.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about our blog. That's another place. Yeah,
Right.
when do you plan to do that? And have people discovered the blog? I think that's a great place to do that. And it lists those things. And if folks would like to know more about any of them and what other topics we can talk about in the future. I was hoping we could get to Jim to talk about trees and maybe in the future even do some kind of programming with some other organizations or town committees and groups, just so there's a lot more force behind us when we go for our climate resolution. Tom, did you want to just list quickly what you have planned to put in?
Okay, well, can I share the screen?
You know what? I don't have, Jessica had to leave. It's really only,
There it is.
oh, you did it. Okay, great. Wow.
I'll just run through this very quick. So, like Badri, there's different categories. So house,
Mhm.
all replacement windows, blown insulation into the attic and into the outside walls, all lights, LEDs, 23 solar panels, and then added 4 more. And in the span of about 6 years, have generated 50 megawatts and averaging about 8.7 megawatts a year, and with the SRECs paying about 2,500 a year, and the amount saved in electricity, I'm practically making money now, broken even by the end of this year. I will have. According to the app, Solar Edge app, it says that the solar panels have saved the equivalent of planting 593 trees, or 35,618 kilograms of CO2 emissions. I don't know how accurate that is. I've installed four ductless mini split heat pumps, but have the old gas furnace as a backup. But I moved the thermostat into the cellar, and so it'll only come on if it gets below 50 degrees down there. I've enrolled in Chelmsford Choice Greenhouse. That reduces your carbon footprint. So currently have 2 electric vehicles that I won't go into the history, but I can tell you that the electric vehicles are saving money. I did a computation, and the Bolt, it's about 7 cents per mile at 3 miles per kilowatt. And if you figure about 21 cents a kilowatt, that at 21 cents a kilowatt. And if you had a gasoline car and it got 25 miles per gallon, and you paid $2.50 a gallon, that would be equivalent to 10 cents a mile. So and that's a very conservative, because I do believe the car gets better than 3 miles per kilowatt. Okay. And I recently have added a Tesla, and that solves the range problem because it gets 321 miles. And with superchargers, the network of superchargers, so now trips to anywhere within 1,000 miles from here are no problem. The yard, you can save a lot of carbon in your yard. Number one, is composting and clotheslines, having a garden, on your lawn, not using fossil-based fertilizers, using an electric mower, reducing water use. This might be about the only thing original I came up with. Using water from the dehumidifier to water the garden. Also have a rain barrel, so that helps to save some water. And I don't tend to water the lawn; it goes brown. Electric tools: hedge clipper, weed whacker, chainsaw. Here's a big thing that's totally different: is moving your investment into ESG holdings. That's environment, social governance. So investments that don't include fossil fuel-based holdings. And then just in general, the reduce, reuse, recycle principle, have that guide everything. So we wash and rinse clothes almost always in cold water, recycle, everything, of course, so that hardly have any trash, maybe 1 barrel or less a week at the most. Use those reusable shopping bags. Use SodaStream to, carbonate the water instead of buying water in aluminum cans or plastic containers. Saves a lot of recycling. Little things like healthy choice lunch entrees. They come in plastic bowls. They have been, but recently they've come out with compostable cardboard power bowls. So now that's the only way I would get them. Limit plastic. It's kind of crazy that they've come out with plastic pumps for soap when you can have a soap bar like in the old days and not, contribute to the plastic problem. Food like Badri, eat a lot less meat and dairy. We really all should buy organic, because then the conventional agriculture using, nitrogen fertilizers that are made from fossil fuels, has a much higher carbon footprint. But it's ironic, sometimes they wrap the organic veggies in plastic. So what do? I'm avoiding wood burning fires in the fireplace. I didn't really realize years ago you're just putting carbon into the air that was sequestered by the trees. So is maybe romantic, but it's not good for your footprint. And we never really used the whole house air conditioner, but now that we have those heat pumps, it's much better. And the mini splits, what you can do is, I mean, for less than $15,000, you can put in quite a few mini splits, and you can use them like for just, hot or cold rooms. You don't have to do your whole house. But in the future, I will look into getting an air exchange, a heat exchange central system to replace the gas furnace and use the hot air ducts. But it'll be air source rather than geothermal because, the expense really. And then last but not least, as the Grinch, I really have cut back on the Christmas lights. It's kind of like, pouring electricity out the window is is something we really should think about, reducing the amount of electricity. And for clothes, become a nudist or just keep wearing what you have. Don't buy new clothes all the time. So that's it. That's my spiel.
That's a great list. I forget about the soda stream. What a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Do you
Stop
want to just
sharing.
unshare the screen so we can see everybody for the,
Yeah, I'm looking for, oh, there it is. Got it. Okay.
I still don't know how to do the sharing thing, but yeah, I think there's some super ideas in there. So I'd encourage you to get that on the blog, and
Yeah.
I could see that your list, and Badri, maybe we need a panel, huh? Let's work that out for a future program. Any comments before we end? Because we've already lost Jessica. She's the one who's holding this together here. So any comments from anybody, questions? Okay, Marilyn,
Unmute.
you have to unmute.
May I share something? Just, I had another Zoom meeting at, before this one started, and it was about the situation with the North Atlantic right whales. And because of global warming, they are in danger of becoming extinct in 20 years. And they were talking about a film that has been produced, which describes the situation, the problem with being hit by ships, being entangled in the lines, fishing lines. But anyways, it was fascinating, and I hope I'll be able to see the full movie. It was presented by the Nature Conservancy, and there was some involvement with the New England Aquarium. They also mentioned that, if the Earth warms beyond a certain point, we're going to lose hundreds of species that will become extinct. So it's really scary. So that's it. Thank you. I'm glad I joined the group.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have a title for that film? Was it
Yes, it's called Entangled.
Entangled?
And the filmmaker is David Abel, A-B-E-L.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Can we just ask you how you found out about this program today? Was it through the library or?
The library. Yes, the library calendar.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for attending.
Mhm.
And anyone else? No? Okay. Yeah, we,
Dale just put his hand up.
oh,
Yeah,
Gail, sorry, I didn't see you.
well, I was unmuting. I was looking for this carbon footprint calculator in the chat, but it doesn't seem to be showing on mine. I'm not sure why. It says there's 7 new messages, but I can't get them to scroll up or anything.
Oh,
Are other people having that problem or not?
I can see it.
Yeah, I see.
I can see it.
Yeah, I wonder if I can, let me try to send it to you.
Yeah, if you send an email, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to look at it a little bit. I have 2 houses to be concerned about, although I think they are both pretty low
Mhm.
according to the power companies, because if I'm not at the house, it runs really minimal. Like in Florida, I only run from down to 74 degrees at 4 a.m. in the morning to 7 a.m. in the morning. So the rest of the time in the summer, I'm not there. It uses very little electricity for cooling.
Oh,
And the same thing up here. When we're not here in the winter, mostly, but for COVID, we'd be gone. We just keep the house at 55 degrees. So
wow.
makes a big difference.
Yeah, Dale, I'm not sure if I have your
I'm
email.
sending it right now.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking through my mail quickly, but I couldn't find an email for you. So thank you, Julie.
Okay. I just
All
did.
right, that's good. Yeah, and I'll try to get those posted on our website as well. I don't have, I've been doing screenshots of the chat. There's probably an easy way to do that, but I haven't figured it out yet.
I'll save it as a file.
Okay, if you can do that and send it to me. And Badri, I just noticed your question in the chat. Judy is actually from the Attleboro Public Library, and I guess she was trying to learn about our program and hoping to do something or to bring their program back. She had a program there in Attleboro, but they had to close it down. And I think, have I answered all the chat questions? Anything you see, Julie, that,
No, I don't see any more questions. I think it would be great if Badri could attend our business meeting Monday night so we could continue, talking.
yes. And Badri, if, or anyone else who might,
Anyone, obviously, but
yeah, that's open. And Vern, who can't be with us today, is the one who's organizing the business meetings. The next one is Monday, the 18th at 7:30. And we can be sure to send you the link if you email us. He's actually, Vern has gotten a real Zoom account. It's not the free one anymore where we have to have our meeting interrupted after the free 40 minutes and then call again to get back on Zoom. So we'll have an uninterrupted Zoom meeting like we do with this program. It'll be refreshing. So if you do want to take part in the business meeting, just let us know. Email us through the website or check with Jessica at the library. And I've got it here on the recording that she has the okay with me to send my email to folks. Should be hesitant to do that. So I think we are reaching the end of our program, and I think we made it without my dogs being too disruptive. So, okay, I think we're
Thank
set,
you.
Julie. Tom?
okay.
All right. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay. Have a great week. Talk to you all later.
Thanks.
Bye.